investigation started.
We found that our son-in-law works for Apple,
Yeah.
and they said early on, no telecommuting after this is over. Everybody has to come back.
Really?
Yeah.
That's interesting.
And they said, that's the rule. Everybody has to show up. So you're gone, right?
Wow. I
We
wonder
just went down there.
how everybody,
Well,
that's the question is
But the
like,
thing, we were just down there visiting with us for a week. I said, so you gotta go back to Apple? No. I said, they've changed. They're saying, if you wanna come down to the one in Cupertino, I'll buy the bus, come down there. Or if you have a meeting face to face, we have to make decisions, then we get together. Otherwise, you can work from anywhere you want.
yeah, because I mean, that's the big question is, are all the people that moved here as a Zoom town, are they gonna all up and go? Or be required to up and go?
Apparently, even the biggest corporations are saying there are only certain circumstances we have to be together. We have to make a real decision. And then get together.
Well, yeah, I mean, I feel like it changes the lot to be in person and be able to talk and see each other. Yeah, my next door neighbor is a.
Yeah.
Okay. Ready? Okay, I will call the meeting to order. Welcome, everybody. Thank you for attending. See everybody in person still, again. We're just saying how it's good. It really helps to be able to gather in person. So our first order of business is the minutes, and Ray raised some questions and made some requests to Todd via email. So we thought that this was a good opportunity to just take stock and make some, discuss what we want from the minutes, what the minutes should look like, what should be included, what shouldn't be included.
And just be part of this discussion, I just wanted to point out that because we're doing Zoom, we can load all of the Zoom recordings online, which we'd like to do. I just wanted to run that by the board before we just went and did it. And I just wanted to let you know, because that might inform this discussion.
Right, and I was gonna say that.
Okay,
Yeah, I
thanks.
mean, so we have this capability now, and and in regards to your last email about transparency and all of that, I think that is like the ultimate first step is to decide to load those video recordings, because like the city does it, multiple agencies do it now because they have it, and then that way anybody who's interested can look at whatever part of the meeting they're interested in, can see the whole discussion, have all the detail. So I think that's a good first step. So, I don't know whether, I mean, I don't think we need a motion to do that, but.
No, it's not just in direction.
Yeah, so I mean, is there consensus that that's something that we would like to start doing?
Yeah.
Okay, all right, well, then,
Oh, might add, because I went to one of the Zoom ones, so I was good enough to send me the link to it. And what I found very helpful was that it's got a time scale on it. And so if we could link the time scale to the parts of the minute, that would be really great if you could.
Yeah, we actually want to look at the city of Bend. They've got a really neat, they use a third party. And so you could actually click on the topic and it takes you right there in Zoom. So we're gonna look into some other options, but for right now, that's a great idea.
Did they use, I thought they were using Microsoft Teams.
They are using, they might be, but for their minutes, they've got this whole third-party company that does minutes for government agencies.
Oh, that's perfect.
Yeah.
That's really great.
Kind of
Yeah,
combines minutes and video and,
so the whole meeting is right there and you click on whatever you want.
whatever you want.
yeah.
So I think
That's
that's like, that would be great,
I think
because I
that-
mean, otherwise you're guessing like, well, was that at the 1 hour mark or was that at?
Oh, you're sitting through, you know, an hour and a half ago. I missed it all.
Yeah, right. So I think that would be, that'd be great. If
I think
we
that's
could
pretty
Figure
much
out what
takes
they're
care of my
doing.
concerns.
Okay,
Uh,
As long as I have a link to easily get to, I can see exactly what occurred, totally transparent, but it's easy to find. We don't have to, public
Okay.
doesn't have to search for it, but we have notations from here. Maybe we can put in the minutes, say, go to whatever
Yeah.
for more.
yeah,
Yeah, because I was, actually, I appreciate this discussion because we were struggling with the minutes. It's a 4-hour meeting, so I didn't want to hand you a 20-page document, but I also wanted you to have enough information. So
Right.
I think this is, it's one, I'd love to hear how these minutes are going for you and then how that works, knowing that you could also supplement it like along.
right. And I did some research so that we would have some information coming into this about what does state law say, what does special district
yeah.
say, what do our governance policies say, obviously. And then, what do Robert's rules say? And so the general, I mean, the state law just says that it must record members present, motions, proposals, ordinance, measures proposed, and their disposition, results of all votes taken, the substance of any discussion of any matter, and a reference to any document discussed. And so it provides, based on the way the law is written, that if you post that video, you're good, basically. So we do want to have some sort of a written record. And most of the guidance from the state and from Robert's rules says it should be a record of the actions taken by the board at the meeting. And so it said, and a lot of them said, keep the discussion to a minimum, but record, like who made motions, who seconded, and any substantive issues that were brought up, but focus instead on, he said, she said, on this is what the board did. So I mean, I think that makes,
On any motions or policy,
right,
the things that are
yeah.
forward.
So do people have, given all that, and given posting of the videos, is the level of detail in the minutes that were circulated, is that what people want to see? Is that about right?
We didn't get it. And you're talking about the minutes as sent on email.
Your packet.
Yeah, my package doesn't have.
Doesn't have
the minutes. It's on the email, right?
No, it should be in your packet. Did anybody else?
I didn't get it down in the packet, I got it, but I took it off.
Oh, I'm sorry.
I'm so sorry.
It's okay.
Okay, so this is it.
Yeah, that's.
Thanks, Lord.
Can
You want me to go
somebody
ahead
write
and
me
have
some
you?
comments? So sorry about that. Thank you. Well, that makes the minutes even harder.
Yeah, really. It's like, how do you feel about this document that you don't have? Yeah, that you don't have. Yeah, so I mean, it basically goes through and says sort of the gist of public comments and then a little bit of, it has some detail, but not extensive.
And if the minutes that I sent by email are the same minutes that went in. They go in your.
No, I didn't
Oh,
have
sorry,
minutes.
I'm so sorry. Yes, so, and just for record, that normally everything I send electronically is exactly what we stick in the packet. So just keep that in mind. If you ever see anything missing, let us know and we'll make copies for you.
Yeah, I would say, in here, my concern was under the on page 3. The very last, the last bullet in the algorithm statement. If there was a notation there that said, what is such and such for the statement and discussion, that would take care of it. You don't have to put the whole thing in there verbatim. But the fact that it wasn't there, that a large part of the discussion.
Great.
You don't have to talk about it.
Yeah.
Right. And then adding, as an addendum to our packet, doesn't necessarily show up on the website when people go to the minutes.
Right.
And what
So this way-
the
this way it would-
guidance said was things shouldn't be, they can be filed with the minutes, but they shouldn't be attached to the minutes, which I mean, so it's not part of the record,
Right.
but it is
Part of the record.
attached. So, I mean, I don't know.
Yeah, I think what they're saying is attached to the board members, so we can refresh ourselves. No one heard. But the general public.
But not for the general public.
Because I think the state is much more in meeting law, much more concerned with who made a motion, who
Right.
seconded, who voted which way, so you have a public record of how everybody has voted.
Voted.
So when it becomes election time, it's like, then they go back and say, well, they voted this way and they vote that way.
Right.
But a lot of times you don't see the discussion that led up to that vote.
But I
It's a
think,
real downfall of public government.
yeah, but I think this whole recording thing is actually moves public access forward a lot. I mean, because not everybody, I mean, that's been kind of the ongoing debate that we've always had about meeting at noon. It's like, well, there's whole segments of the population that can't get off work to go to a public meeting. And so this way you can view what happened without having to be there. So I think that's good.
Actually, I think what we did was, you were still working. We used to have that start at 11:30 or something. And you couldn't do that. And we moved it,
Yeah,
because we were earlier, I remember. And we had lunch.
Yeah,
I would suggest we might. But the people who were willing to show up, everyone those people.
So do you feel like you have direction, Todd?
Yeah, I think at this point, yes, I do. And I guess you, or maybe you need a motion for the.
Right. I would entertain a motion for approval of the minutes.
Before we approve the minutes, I have a question.
Sure.
And it's under the public hearing section on page 4.
Mhm.
And I may be mistaken, but towards the end of that section, it said there were no public comments were received. But yet we received written documentation from Paul Dewey and Paula Hiram.
Yes.
I think that was for the regular public comments. I think that was the public comment on the local
Okay.
contract review board.
Okay, that's answering my question.
Yeah,
Sorry, can you go back, where were you? I was,
well,
Page 4,
oh, okay, yes, because we had two different sessions, nobody made any comments on the thing.
yeah, right, on the local.
so I wasn't
contract
sure where those two fell,
Oh, okay,
their comments fell in.
Well, I think those fall under letters to the board.
both of
so-
them, when they sent them to me, requested that they go with the general public comment, so that's where.
Because Paul Dewey says a public hearing on proposed RFP. So that's
Yes.
why I was
Oh,
wondering.
okay, so.
So that's why I
Paul
was
Dewey's-
wondering.
Oh, okay,
Yeah,
sorry,
yeah, his which over the contract for, contract review.
I guess, I'm just saying, if you look at his thing, it seems to be more on, not so much the CMGC part of the meeting, but it was more on the, it wasn't specific, it didn't seem to be specific to the CMGC.
It wasn't at all.
Okay, so that's why, so then in that case, it should be with the general comments,
It was,
because,
Well, he's asking to
Yeah.
propose, to table proposal for the resolution to use solicitations for the CMG and CG.
oh, okay,
okay.
Yeah.
all right, we can,
So we can amend that,
amend that,
put it in, we're going,
yes.
well, how do we do that then if it's a letter?
Well, and
Somebody has
is
to read
that,
it
I mean, is,
Well-
and again, that fits into, so that's testimony that is submitted.
Right, do we read it into the Zoom? Or any suggestions? No,
I think just the, I don't know,
does anybody have suggestion on how to do that then? Or do we scan it in and,
Because they,
I think, I think what Ann was saying, if we just file it, and if somebody wants to see them, we'd be happy to show them, but.
yeah, we can summarize their comments in the minutes.
Yeah.
A letter was submitted. No?
yeah, no, I don't think, because
All right,
what we have on the Zoom, the reason the Zoom works very well is we see the verbatim, actual presentation by the public, actual discussion by us. Yeah, what happens when it's a letter?
And how does that differ from just letters submitted to the board?
Yeah, well,
Like, not
if letters are
fine.
submitted to the board as part of the meeting. We have letters submitted to the board just as letters to the board over the time
Right.
period. And this one was submitted as part of the meeting,
Public hearing.
the public meeting here. Do we read it in or?
that's a good question, and then the other question would be, if you're reading it and it takes more than the allotted time, will you do that?
I was looking at some minutes from other, like the school district and the city and the Parks and Rec and stuff like that. And there was an instance of that where they were reading it in and they cut them off
Oh,
at 3 minutes.
that might make sense.
So I think the proper thing is maybe to read, when we get stuff like that,
Yeah.
to read them in until we hit the 3-minute mark.
makes
Is that,
Who's the fastest reader?
We're summarizing everybody's comments.
Yes.
It doesn't seem appropriate to me that.
if you write
that
the,
you write a letter, that whole thing goes in when people's comments are all summarized.
right,
No, but on the Zoom, they're not being summarized.
Very
The only thing with the
little
Zoom is they're actually there verbatim.
Mhm.
so
Video and audio.
the minutes would have a summary.
Summary and citations is something on the Zoom. I suppose you could just. Can you scan this into Zoom?
Well, I think really that the most logical thing would be to actually read
Read it in.
them in and limit it, in fairness, limit it to the 3 minutes.
So yeah, read it in. And then summarize it in the minutes. And so the portion that fits within the 3 minutes
Gets read.
gets read.
That's the person has practiced. I've seen that where they practice and they can actually read 2 pages in 30 minutes.
Yeah. Okay,
Or we do every effort to read the whole thing. I
okay,
guess if it's on Zoom, it doesn't much matter. does it?
I think for all of us, what we're not trying to do here is figure out how to squelch
Right.
information.
right,
It's
right,
just making
but how
sure we're
to
on
treat
it,
it
yeah.
fairly and how to
Yes.
get it so people can get at it.
Yes.
I'm thinking of something short, page and a half.
Yeah.
If it ran over, a couple of seconds, read the whole thing in.
Yeah.
Somebody sends us a poem,
Yes.
it goes on and it's just,
Well, and that's at
Same
the
point over and
discretion of
over
the
and over
chair,
again.
right? Like if somebody's talking and they're in the middle of a thought, if they're about done, you can say, okay, just finish, so, yeah, we can. Okay. That makes sense.
so read
So-
as much as you can, as fast as you can.
Okay,
Or-
is everybody good with that? Okay. All right, so do we have a motion regarding the minutes?
Regarding the minutes.
These minutes for the July meeting.
Okay, I so move that we accept the minutes of the board meeting of July 14th as submitted.
Do I hear a second?
And amended and all that,
What?
and Zoom and everything.
Well, that's just something we're gonna do. Right, I mean, so I don't think that has,
So we will amend these ones. As soon as you have the capability on Zoom to do that. But you already have it recorded on Zoom,
Yes.
we'll just put the notations in here. When you have the time scale. For each topic, or if you get that, whatever the city is using. that we-
Well, I'd say for.
oh, so
Yeah.
to use, I mean, it might not happen with this one, just because, I mean,
Well, we can go back and do it, because he's got the
Yeah.
same one.
yeah,
We'll approve it
with
with
the
that
intent
going
of going back.
We'll amend it that way.
Okay, I
If-
just find, just for, we have like a year's worth of Zoom. And I think we could post them all. But I don't want to go back through a year's worth and find time, so.
Now let's start with this one.
Okay. Okay,
Is that okay with you?
And I think just for that, I would put the times under the main edits. So if you want to get to public comments, we'll say the time that starts.
right,
And then we'll say the time and the executive limitations.
Perfect.
yeah, and I think that's what the city does,
Right.
Yes.
that's
yeah, I
what
mean,
it
it's
is.
just
Not-
like the
not for
big
each.
chunks of.
Yeah, not for
the-
every single bullet and everything.
Right,
Right.
okay,
That is too micro.
okay. All right, so,
I'll second that.
okay, any discussion? All those in favor? Aye. Okay. No opposed? That's our approved.
You want this back, Laura? Thank you.
Okay. So we come to public comments, and it doesn't look like we have. No public.
We're all public.
Okay. Bond updates.
Okay. And just so you know, we're having people sit in the chair so that we can catch them on the microphone.
Thank you.
So in case you're wondering why Greg's not around.
It's like-
I'm in the witness chair now.
You really?
That's fast.
Well, good afternoon, good to be here again. I sent out the monthly report, and if I just talk about what activity happened this past month. As you know, two of our big events were with you in the finalization of the architect selection and the CMGC exemption process. So that took up a lot of our time this past month. Following our board meeting, we immediately engaged with the top ranked architect and went through the contract with them, through the schedule with them, and through all of the cost elements relative to the contract. And for the most part, there's no changes to our contract language. We have told everybody up front, this is what it is, this is what you're going to sign up for. And so we have no issues with that. We went through some alternates on the pricing to kind of reconcile some of those, just to fine tune them and get that probably our most work with the architect is actually spent on our schedule. And within our master development schedule, really adding a lot more detail to the design phase of our schedule and what it was saying in more detail, how we go about our cost estimating in there. And so that's been a really positive aspect of that. It kind of builds on what we had, builds on what work they're going to do, and then also how we'll interact with our CMGC and with our cost estimator as we go forward. So as you saw, there's been adjustments to the master summary schedule, which we made to do some alignment. Same with our master development schedule, which is posted online at the DPL website to keep that. And we'll update that master development schedule pretty much every month as we move through the process. The summary schedule, probably not as much. One item on the summary schedule for clarification that I wanted to point out is, as you'll see underneath there and looking at the new central library, the first aspect of the architect's scope of work is concept and planning phase. And it goes through, and one of the things we realized is label that activity two different things. On some of the buildings, particularly all of the branches that are existing, they're going to be renovated. We had on there a facilities analysis. And I just wanted to make sure you guys knew it's really one and the same phase of work, in that it's the initial steps that the architect, our design team takes in understanding our expectations. So they're building upon the final report that was done in the initial design phase to create the bond program. They're asking for and getting a lot of information from DPL of what their vision is, what they see, how they want to functionally operate the buildings, what their programs will be, and how they'll use space. So they're looking at that element, and the facilities analysis is also something on the branches, where part of their scope is to really get in here and look at these existing buildings to understand how they're functioning today, how they're operating, how they operate under the revised layout, how the building systems, so that's the mechanical system, the electrical, the plumbing, communications, data and telecom, because of changes, and then how will they, as a collective group of facilities, interlink and work together. So just a little bit of clarity there, what that activity is. You can see we stacked them vertically, and that was something that the architect wanted to do. We really thought that was a good idea, in that they are going through and researching and understanding what we want out of each individual facility, how we want them to interface together before they start diving into developing documents for all of the projects. So that was a change. The basic sequence of the rest of the flow of the project hasn't changed much. We've talked about potentially adjusting when we complete and build out the individual branches, being Sister, Sun River, Lapine, and East Bend, as we may try to make some adjustments, pulling them up a little earlier, and looking at how they interrelate to each other, so that we're always keeping them open, temporary facilities available, et cetera. So that was something that we really kind of looked at with them to make sure our timeline of when we complete plans check and then are ready to pull permits, we're also ready in a timely basis to go forward with setting our GMPs with our CMGC for that building and then constructing it. So that's an area that we had a lot of discussion about. Same with Downtown Bend. Downtown Bend construction happens after Central. So we really looked at that. We want to slide the final design and plan check closer to the construction, so that our approved plans, the permit is valid at the time we're ready to construct, and it's based on the most current codes adopted by the city. So just some functional how we lay out the schedule with them. think I mentioned the one project that shifted a bit was the duration for plan check with the city of Redmond. They're taking longer in their initial plan review time. And we had initially discussed with the city and anticipated the architects, their current experience is, hey, here's how long it's taking. So we adjusted that, it pushed our start date out a little bit. And that's something that we're going to look at with the architect and the CMGC and the city as we go through the design process of what's their workflow. It's really was, there's so much activity going on that it's pushed them a little bit. So I think we have a goal to pull that back in alignment. I've mentioned that to the city and call I had with them just to say, hey, here's what we've heard and understand. And they're very willing to look at that as we start to engage with them with our architectural team. And that'll occur over the next year long.
So that's exclusively with permitting.
Yeah, really just permitting. As they go through their first round of plan check, where they review the plans, give us comments. That's where we saw a little bit longer duration. So it reflected in a later start date on Redmond when you look at the schedule.
So I'm not familiar with how long it's taking in Redmond to do these things. How does that compare with the length of time between permitting the process in Redmond versus? I hope it's not equal.
They're about the same. We had planned a
That's
little
not
bit
what I
more
said
for,
out here.
yeah. Bend is
Wow.
about the same. Redmond was actually a little faster. And,
So they're really
yeah.
growing.
Yeah, I think the adjustment was about 4 weeks or so, 6 weeks, maybe 4 to 6 weeks of the first plan review. So we expect to see that adjustment. They try to hold to their stipulated times that they have when they're doing their plan reviews, but we do see that occurs where when their workload is up, they can push out. So, we talked about this with the architect, and one of the things that they talked about is as we kick off the project and get going, they'll start and we'll have preliminary reviews with the city. And where they're engaging, showing them what our scope of work is, what our design is. We'll share our schedule with all of the cities. We've shared them to date. But we'll get in there with staff at the plan check level and start engaging with them. What is their real timelines, what's happening in real life for them, and how we'll get through the plan check process. So, I think we'll be able to always monitor it and make sure we're maintaining schedule, but also looking for opportunities. Can we pull it back up?
So are you anticipating then, because of the increased construction going on in Redmond now, that our costs will be increasing in Redmond?
I don't think that duration will.
I mean, just in terms of the scarcity of labor and materials, we're going to start getting higher bids.
Yeah.
Higher price bids.
As it goes out, it does. And within our cost estimate is a built-in escalation factor.
Right.
Of escalating the costs from the original estimate done in 2020. Escalating it out all along for each project of its anticipated bidding and construction date timeframes. So as we update our cost estimate, so kind of building on that, where we're at today, we've worked through these things with the architect. We've actually had, I think, 4 work sessions with them on kicking off design, this conceptual planning phase. So they're actively going. We had them out here for 2 days, and they're going to be back for 2 days this coming week, where they're touring through the buildings and digging in. They're bringing all of their engineers with them this month, and we'll do that. So we're engaging on that level. At the end of this concept phase of work, we will be going back to our cost estimators and asking them to update our current budgets to what the current design and concept plans are that come out of our design team, what our current impacts and forecast is of what's going on in the market from a cost standpoint. And we go through and update these cost estimates between now and when we set the GMP with the CMGC, probably about 4, maybe 5 times. So that with each phase of design, and that's concept and schematic, DB, and that. And that's that little dollar sign that shows up on the schedule, is when we would plan on doing budget updates. One, so that we're looking at what are they drawing and is it in budget? What's going on in our market? And what's the fluctuation happening in market price and how we're dealing with that. The other aspect there was manpower and availability of subcontractors. So, you know, with the CMGC exemption approval last month, thank you very much. We held a information meeting this beginning of this month and invited all of the contractors, anybody who wanted to attend, to join us for a meeting, either virtually or in person. We had, and it was a non-mandatory, just open discussion about our strategy, our plan, how we go about contracting for services. And we had a really good attendance. And we had a lot of good, pardon?
How many?
I think there was 11 general contractors represented in the room. And we had 4 different ones on the virtual conference. So I couldn't tell on the virtual if they were, I think they were individual companies. They could have been a couple people from the same.
Right.
But it was, you know, basically all of our local commercial general contractors that are here in Central Oregon were very well represented. We had good conversations with them, giving them updates. So I think that, one, we're getting a lot of good interest. They understand the different packages, what packages we'll have and the sizes, so that they can look at what their firm's abilities are to pursue a particular package. One or all, they can choose on their own there. But it was back to, really found that we had a good, strong interest in their showing up to a non-mandatory information meeting. And so that was very pleasing to see that we have a good group of generals out there, which helps to really drive and get that in there to build on our subcontractor interest.
We have another set of meetings every time that the architect comes back with their revisions, so that the contractors can look and say which one of these do they want to bid on. But the scope may change.
You know, as part of our public outreach and information, there will be certain amounts of information produced. We would share that with them. So we're gonna, our RFP will be issued this month for the Central Library and for Redmond for the CMGC to bring them on board. The RFP for the CMGC for the branches will probably go out right after we bring on the first 2. And in part because the architects would like to push the design of our branches earlier. We're trying to pull it up a little bit faster. So we'd like to get them on board. And then the 4th package with Downtown Bend, because it's so far out, we'll probably go out for that after the first of the year and to bring them on board. So as we're ready to issue those packages, we'll include in them all of the available current design information that we have, so they can see it. I think as they may have interest in what's going on, often they will reach out to us. I get emails and calls of what's the status.
Right.
And so we try to, you know, informally keep them updated prior to issuance of the RFP. Once we go to the RFP, it becomes a very formal process that we follow. But I think as we go through, we'll do that. With the CMGCs on board, we will have them looking to build subcontractor interest, vendor interest, how they go out and promote the project, how they keep the subs involved. Subs will be involved through our budgeting process as we go through. So that's going to get them interested in what sizes fit them, right? Some of the subs can take on Central. Some of them aren't physically capable. They're not size appropriate, but they'll go after the others. And so I think that all of that effort between CMGC outreach to the subcontractor community and our ongoing estimating and budgeting activities will expose the projects to the subcontracting community, because that is where our baseline support is at the subcontractor level. They do all the work for the most part. You know, some of our CMGCs will self-perform certain trades, but 90% of it is subcontracted out to our subcontractors. Well, that's where we want to push down to hiring local and finding the right fit also. You know, sometimes you need some of the outside firms who are bigger and specialized with some of our specialized elements in new buildings in particular. Kind of going through those elements of what's going on there. So like I said, this month coming out here is architects kicked off and running, which is really great. We've got meetings where we're on a rhythm now where they're engaged on a weekly basis with us as we go through to develop the plans and work through that process. And so we'll continue on that basis. The RFPs for the 2 CMGC packages, Central and Redmond, will go out mid-month here. We'll issue them. We'll go through all of their proposals, and with our plan is to come to the board in October with the results of the CMGC proposal process for those 2 and present them to you. And it'll look very almost identical to what you saw in Architect in our evaluation documents and how it's presented. We follow a very similar format in doing that. So those are probably 2 of the big activities going on, and getting design, getting our initial CMGCs engaged in the project. Budget, yeah.
So I take it that you've negotiated the contract for the architectural firm.
Yes.
Signed, everything's done. What's the costing of this? What is their fee going to be?
In total, it's right around 13 million, plus it's a little more than 13 million in
Is it a
total.
set figure or is it a percentage of the?
It's a set figure, fixed fee. Yes,
Okay.
we went with fixed fee for full design services, including all of their consultants. And then that number is broken down for each work package. And so it gets broken down from that one number to about 40 different little sub numbers between their fees, the consultant fees, and then for work package 1, 2, 3, and 4, which are the groups of projects.
And they'll be paid by phase or is it?
Yes.
Time by phase?
As they work through, so this initial phase of conceptual plans.
So halfway through, they get paid and
Yeah.
at the end.
Each month, they'll bill for a percentage completion of that phase
Right.
of where they're out. And so we'll go through each of those billings to look at and say, okay, do we agree that they worked for this amount of time
Mhm.
and the work product that they produced is relative to the scope of work that we wrote? Because
Yeah.
each phase of work is defined in their contract. What does this mean? What are you going to produce? So that we can look at tangible results of work product relative to what we were paid.
So if they say they're halfway through and you don't agree.
Yeah.
Then you can have that discussion as you go along rather than waiting till the end.
Exactly. No, before we approve that invoice, we'll go through that even before we'll present it over to Todd and DPL.
Who's the we?
approval. Myself, and then 2 of my project managers,
Okay.
James Spence and Benjamin Steinman, are both working on the project with me. So the 3 of us go through the invoices and the billings as we get them in, and then we assemble a draw package that we then submit to Todd, and then we review with Todd and the committee for to answer any questions and address
Do you
that.
present that to us or not? Or do we want it presented to us?
Do not present it to you. Because basically you've approved it. Entire project. But you're getting updates through these monthly, these are your updates through the monthly.
Right.
So we are gonna get, as an FYI, the approvals, the invoices, how much is cost on an ongoing basis. So we can see how the budget is working, right?
Yeah, so each month I include the summary report in there, which identifies what's been spent to date. And so that's generally like when I produced this one, it was as the beginning of July of what we had paid out through June.
Mhm.
As we assemble
Right.
the July draw, we just literally assembled it, went through it
There
and
we go.
submitted it for payment here, and it'll show up in the next
Right.
report.
Okay, so this is it.
It's really about 1 month
Yeah.
behind, right? Because of the timing of turning in the information for the board pack is right at the beginning of the month. And by the time you collect all the invoices from the vendors, they get them in normally no later than about the 5th to the 10th of the month. We turned in the full draw package this past Monday, which was the 9th, which is generally about the normal time.
Yeah.
As we move in, one of the things we do have is Oregon has Prompt Pay Act. And so we have a timeline, and this is really affects all of our contractors, where we have got to, from the time we receive it, release funds to them within a certain amount of time, which would prevent us like bringing every draw into you guys. That's where we've got to go through it and allow Todd, it generally allows him about a week to cut checks and issue payment for our contractors. Will be more effective, but that's the bulk of the money we're going to spend is with our
Yeah,
contractors.
we are not responsible to approve every single invoice on there.
Yeah.
As far as information, there will be that 1 month delay.
Yeah.
So it's not too bad, actually.
Exactly.
But
And with our,
does the board want any more, a breakdown? Like say in downtown Bend Library? How much was spent to date? You want what it was spent on? You want that level of, a little more detail of how the money is being spent?
For me, the summary that Greg gives us each month and allows us to ask him specific questions, for me, that's enough. I don't need that much detail. I mean, I think that if you come prepared to answer questions for us, I need that.
Yeah, and I think between that and the narrative and your
Yeah.
verbal or oral remarks, I mean, I get a good sense of where we are and what we're
Exactly.
spending money on at this stage.
I agree.
And having it broken down by facility is good. So I mean, I think that's about the level of detail that is sufficient for me.
I mean, it's pretty straightforward, each one of the projects.
and we do keep a very detailed set of job cost accounting
Right.
reports that are very lengthy.
You
and
don't just pinch the receipts into a shoebox.
Exactly.
I don't
So,
wanna go through
because as we go through, we'll be working with the DPL's accountant. Because we'll have a bond accountant who's involved with auditing, and we'll go through all of ours. That is very detailed. We address all the questions that Todd and his team present to us as well, digging deeper into some of that detail. So, yeah.
I guess my
I do have
feeling is-
confidence we have that.
That's why we hired you.
Right, exactly.
That's your job, and your job is to report to us, so
Well,
I
there's
think
a-
gobbledygook for me.
There are some boards that I'd like to delve deeper into these. Like see a little breakdown of where the money's going.
Yeah.
So the root, it was just confident this level.
Right?
You feel confident on this level?
I do. I feel like he's always I feel very confident. The questions are always answered. If we need more information, it's always been sent to us, so I feel very confident.
Good enough.
I had a question. You mentioned the public outreach. I was just wondering in your discussion with the architects, if they brought up how that's gonna happen or what that's gonna look like going forward.
Yeah. Had a lot of discussion about that with DPL. DPL will be very engaged in that process. We'll utilize the existing website to share information as well. And then we'll set up various forms of public outreach. We'll have some committees that we work with much like at the very beginning of the project, there's a committee to bring in community members to help hear, advise, and get some opinions. There'll be open workshops with select groups. You know, one of them that we talked about is how do you get to some of the underrepresented groups with it. The teens was a big discussion about how do you connect to the teens and get their thoughts, to get them engaged in the library and make sure that because they have a different mindset, right, than some of us. So yeah, those conversations are going, they become a part of our weekly discussion. They will follow as we develop the plans through the process, the concept, the schematic engagements, where we develop our designs to a certain point, then we start sharing them and getting input and feedback from community members, from the staff, getting their engagement. So people who are going to use it, people who are going to manage it and run the facilities and the programs and how they're going to do that. So very much so, that'll continue basically on an ongoing basis. It's very heavy here through the beginning of the design process. So the first 6 to 9 months will be a lot of, because that's when you got to gather that information. But then it'll continue through the life of the project to share back of, here's, you know, what we're doing. Here's that we'll keep sharing so that people can see the results of their comments, the results of our work product, and kind of have a good understanding of, hey, what are they going to see when we open up and have the new facilities there.
Our probably our first public engagements will be after we have, they come to the board in October, and then we'll go out to the public for the rest of October and November. And will be the first big round of public.
Those presentations will also be hybrid.
We're kind of working on different ways of doing it. One, Whole has had a lot of success with online engagement, so we'll be taking advantage of that as well. So not just in person, but actually doing some online surveys. They like to, one thing they did in the past, they like film their presentation and put it online for people that couldn't get there and go in there and get their comments in.
That's really good.
Yeah, because that's always been our challenge, is we hold a public forum and we get 20 people to show up, but what about
All the rest.
Yeah, and so that's an exciting piece that they're really looking at ways we can engage people.
Yeah, so we have easy public response comment. Yeah. Try and get as many as possible.
I think I've kind of hit on most of the big items in my report and kind of activity that's going on. Any other questions that I could address from you guys?
How's it?
I was just gonna ask if Todd had any further comments as far as the meetings that you've been having.
With the architects,
Yeah,
very exciting. One of the things that we have actually talked about at the last meeting is this a group that will listen? And it's very obvious that they are, and not just listening to us as staff, but they're excited about that public engagement. One other piece is before they come to the board meeting, we're gonna have a staff day October 1st. So they'll also be meeting with their staff, which is pretty exciting for us, a chance to get everybody in the district there.
The whole staff.
COVID willing. But anyway, that's been really good. I think they've got a lot of exciting. I think they've got some exciting ideas. They seem to be very innovative, and it's going to be very interesting to see what they bring back. So when they come to you in October, just realize part of what they're doing is they're trying to kind of set a baseline for conceptual design so that it can start sparking conversation. So if you're looking at that and saying like, oh my gosh, I can't believe you did this or that, some of that's kind of designed to get get reaction, because they're gonna take that, listen to people, and then come back up with adjustments, and then come back. So again, I think for them, that's such a big process for them. It's not, they're not doing it just because they have to check a box because we said we wanted public engagement, so they have one meeting a week. So that's really important.
So they really have the attitude going forth. What do we want to be accomplishing? What are the results, the outcomes? What do we need to do that? Facilities we have now, how are we accomplishing it now? What do we need to do? Change or add on or scrap it all and start over again, that sort of thing. Like the team program.
And they'll also be engaging with us with some of the committees. City of Redmond reached back out to me this month and about revisiting with them with their downtown urban renewal committee, as well as the historic landmark commission. And that we told them when we met with them that we would come back, as we progress through. They're very excited about the project.
What's the interaction with the historic landmarks?
Just what's going to go on with the property. And they know our plan, they understand our plan, but
Have they come up, have they expressed their opinions on what to do or?
no, they had very few comments when we met with them.
I've never heard anything but very positive.
Yeah.
There's a small contingency that does not want the building destroyed.
Right.
But it's not a large group of people, it's a very small group of people.
Yeah, I think more about how do we honor the past through the creation of the new building? What are some of the elements and the thoughts and the things that were there that we can carry forward, but build into the new facility? So I think that's probably the biggest element that I expect.
Stealing glass thing.
It's the same group of people who, when the library took over Jesse Hill, they were not happy with it. They wanted Jesse Hill to remain as Jesse Hill. And so, which is not possible. It's an old building, it needs to be updated. And so it's basically that same contingency still.
Yeah, but we need to honor their concern.
And we've addressed that. That's exactly what we said to the city council. It's what we talked about with the historical society. So that's one thing, because I was involved in that when Jesse Hill became the library. And when that was proposed, that was exactly because they did bring in some aspects of the old school and brought it into the library. And that's been very well received so far.
Yeah.
You said the architects also.
Yeah.
Felt very open to that.
Yeah, and just how the new library will really fit in the fabric right downtown there. They created a new master plaza. And so they're excited about us being there with the new facility and how we're going to be interacting with that. But as the architects develop their designs, even at these early stages, they're going to be communicating with the governing agencies, the cities, Bend, Redmond, and the county, to make sure that we're not doing anything, later down the road, the city's gonna say, wow, you guys went way off.
Right.
We'll know up front. So just like we're getting input from our community members and DPL yourselves, we're getting input from our cities to make sure that our designs and our plans are vetted through them. And then, ultimately we go to plan check, but we want their input early on. As much of a team player,
Right,
stakeholder in
you
this
want to
process.
integrate with what they're
Very
doing and
much.
what their goals are. too.
Yeah.
Right.
Exactly.
For the teams, have we reached out to ensure like we get Boys and Girls Club? Any other team organizations?
Well, that's what we're doing right now, is designing what this public outreach looks like.
Okay, yeah, identify certain ones where we have deficiency.
Yeah.
Middle school, middle
Exactly.
school, high school, young adults. Anywhere where they're going, we go to them rather than any company.
Exactly.
Yeah, great.
Anything else?
Any other questions? Okay, thank you.
All
Greg.
right, well,
That
thank
was
you. I get to
informative.
get out of the hot seat.
Yeah, really. We return to your. At least it's like you didn't have to stand in front of the
Yeah.
microphone or
Oh,
something, having to
yeah.
give yours.
With no podium.
Okay, next up, we have the monitoring, report on management practices. Todd, would you like to introduce this?
Yes, so a couple of things, so just kind of going through, it's a short monitor or policy. The first one, I shall not fail to implement collaborative management practice, support a climate of trust throughout the organization. So I listed some of the things we're doing, but I did want to highlight, so we're trying to do every 2 years an employee engagement survey. And we did one in 2018 and we came back last August. So now we have some for comparison. It was an interesting time to do employee engagement right in the middle of the pandemic. And I'll be fully honest, we're struggling in being engaged with staff because we have all these barriers of, we've had shutdowns, we've been trying to do social distancing. But one thing that very much came through in that employee engagement survey was real need to connect more with staff, make sure that we're listening better. And a really fun part of that is we need to improve our communication in all directions. And the first thing we said was, well, as managers, we could solve that and list a bunch of ways to do that. And then we stopped and said, if people are feeling like their voices aren't heard, why don't we go and talk with them about how we can communicate better instead of coming in with solutions. So we're actually doing that right now for this whole month. We've been doing town halls with staff and I've been sitting in them, ending on them. We have another manager sits in it as well. We kind of rotate who's doing it. It's been really informative, a great way to kind of open up and just kind of take the scariness out of approaching management and hearing people's thoughts. Already, just from those discussions, we probably implemented about 2 or 3 things in the last week that employees had some great ideas. You know, a good example came this week where staff were saying, you know, during the pandemic, we would hear the governor's going to make an announcement. And then as managers, we would scramble for a couple days and figure out everything we're going to do and then let staff know. And it was a simple request of what we'd really like is, we know the government made an announcement, and the public knows it, and they're asking questions. Could you just tell us, 1, that you actually heard the announcement, and 2, maybe give us a timeline of when you'll have information for us? So this was a great chance to implement that today. Last night, Holly sent out a message saying, we just found out governor's gonna have an announcement this afternoon at 11. And we will be working on it, and we will have details for you by Thursday afternoon. And so that was you know, one of those simple things that if you're not having that conversation with people, we're not getting. And there's deeper issues we need to work on. We really need to build trust, especially over the last year. There's just been a lot. Over the last year, we had to do a lot of coming in and saying, this is what's happening and here's what we're going to do, which is not that collaborative management practice that we were aiming for, but in a crisis, you kind of have to do that. And we've got some work to do to build out of that.
Was that mainly because of the COVID restrictions? And
Yes.
all?
Yeah, I mean,
Simply that now shelter, as the governor says,
yeah.
your
Or-
choices are like,
Yeah, and our situation is we have 1 day to figure out what we're gonna do. And it doesn't leave the time to take 3 weeks to talk with staff and get ideas.
so it's an erosion of trust in things that you have no control over.
Yes, and I won't pin it all on the pandemic. That's always going to be a challenge.
Let's
for
pin
us.
it all on the pandemic.
Yeah, that's just something that we need to do anyway. So that's the start of what we're looking at. What we're trying to do is set up kind of regular town halls so that we're doing that all the time. not just once every 2 years coming and asking a couple of questions. And then hear from us again. So that's kind of an exciting piece of what we're working on right now. Some other pieces in here that we won't operate without written personnel rules. You all have a copy of your personnel rules in your board member manual. And then we just revised those this year to reflect changes in laws. Usually every July we're updating. And we have all staff sign those as well, so that making sure that they've actually had a chance to read them. In here, we'll provide aggrieved employees the opportunity to appeal decisions, and that process is outlined under the policy. We do not have any grievances in this year, so. Will not discriminate against any staff member for the expression of dissent within the district protocols. As I say in here, we do not permit any form of retaliation in the form of expression of dissent within these protocols. That's kind of a dry way of saying it. Another way of looking at that too is by increasing this engagement we're having with the employees, we're also trying to break down barriers where we may not have that in our policies, but we're also trying to break down that perception, the hidden perception of, well, maybe if I said something, it's going to show up in some form that you don't see. Just building up again that trust to be able to show that we're open to conversations is important. Fail to acquaint staff with their rights under this policy, and again, I talked about the personnel rules. So my conclusion is the district is in compliance with the management practices executive limitations policy.
How do you feel morale is now? Overall.
Well, based on when we did the August 20, I'll start with that. With
Okay.
August 2020, it has dropped from 2018.
Because of isolation and everything, or is it?
I think yeah. I think that was for multiple reasons. A lot of things happened with COVID that were challenging. Week one, if you remember when it first hit, we had to identify essential personnel and non-essential personnel based on how the government said it. When you get labeled as non-essential,
Yeah.
and we send you home, and thankfully to the board, we were able to pay everybody. Still, it's kind of stings to say that. I try to get that across the staff that just because the government said something as that, it does not mean that that's the way it feels.
Not a good phrase, not the same.
Yes.
Yeah, no, but that was a big deal
Oh, yeah.
in almost all organizations.
Oh, yeah.
Yes. I think it was improving with kind of the relaxation of mask mandates and people getting vaccines. I'm sure this is going to be a big struggle. It probably is for all of us right now to be putting on our mask back on and seeing, it's a little scary seeing the numbers going up. I would say that kind of the good news silver lining on this is I think the efforts we're doing around the town halls, engaging with our staff, just keep building that up. We're also in the middle of our visioning process, which is all of you had a chance to meet with Chris Van Dyke. It's been, I think, very inspiring for all of us just to sit back and just have that discussion of why libraries are important. And it's kind of reaffirming to everybody that's having this discussion. So I hate to pin on where it is right now, but it's not at an all-time high. It's a struggle after coming out of it.
Yeah, but again, it's because of factors outside of your control. So it's not as well as you can. Somebody tells you will do this, there's not much choice.
And it's difficult, you know, every year, Lynn and I would go out and meet with every staff department every year. And we haven't been able to do that for 2 years now. And it shows that connection, even just the fact that Lynn and I know everybody's name across the district. In the last 2 years, we hired a lot of people, and there's a lot of people that have seen me on the computer.
Yeah.
I've seen Lynn on the computer, but we haven't.
Yeah, interpersonal connection is not being built there.
Yeah,
So it's pretty safe to say we are not one of those organizations that can operate in hybrid fashion.
well,
I mean,
that's
there's
right.
some that would, but that's why take a few job positions that say you operate externally, and everybody else has to be on site. It really is,
Actually, we actually are doing a lot of that, so I hate to.
but I mean, in the long run,
Uh,
after this is all finished,
Yeah, actually, along with everything else, there's good and bad. Actually, some of the great things, our monthly staff meetings are on Zoom. And you can imagine in the past, I was never able to get in front of all 115 employees and talk with them. And so now we're able to do that every month, and we're continuing that. And it's not just me talking, we've actually you kind of neat things, actually, it was in my announcements, but one thing we started doing is we have new employees as they come in, we actually let them introduce themselves to everybody online, which is great. In the past, you can imagine, we have a staff person that starts in Malkin, and you work in Sisters, you may not see them until we have a staff day. And so it's a nice way to connect people. Last month, we had a staff suggestion that, hey, that's nice that we can see that, but we don't know who the board is. Could you have a board member come in? So I started that last month, I had Ann come in, just say, quick 5 minutes, here's who I am, here's why I'm on the board. And the staff really like that, so we want to continue that. So I'm looking for a volunteer for our September 3rd meeting. It's on Zoom, it's a Friday. Think about that if you'd like to do that. It's low stress, just kind of a quick, here's who I am, here's why I'm interested in libraries, and just a chance for them to connect their face with them.
so we get the Einstein.
You're welcome to dress up however you want.
I did not think of that, Ray, I must admit.
And you might, I don't know, your experience from your end.
No, it was great. I mean, it was,
Oh,
it was,
fun.
yeah, no, it was good because, we sort of see the same people, which we love to see you all here. But then, it's like, there are a lot of people, I mean, I know people in the downtown Bend branch because that's the branch I use mostly, and I know some people, but I don't know everybody. So it's good to see the range of faces, and I thought it was a great deal. And I think it is important for people to know who's on the board and why they're doing it. So.
And that was low stress. Ann was able to do that from her home office and pop in. So anyway, think about that. I will be hitting you up soon.
September 3rd.
September 3rd, and we do it every month, except for October, because we're gonna have that.
So what time?
9 a.m. and we'll put it right at the top of the day. September-
Yeah, it's like,
Oh. There is no 9. Well, if it's on Zoom, you just have to dress in stuff.
Sure.
yeah, exactly. You can wear your, whatever you want on the bottom.
Have to be awake. Sure, that would be fun. We're not trying to put that down.
Yeah, go ahead. Yeah, I'll get you on the next one.
What are we calling this?
It's a library all staff meeting. We'll send you a meeting.
Oh,
Okay, do people have any other questions for Todd on this? Executive policy limitation 3B, management practices? Okay, if not, I would entertain a motion
also move.
that we are in compliance.
I'll move that.
Okay, second, all those in favor? Aye. Motion passes unanimously. Okay, now we're on to treatment of library customers.
Okay, switch things up a little bit. I sent you the report. Hopefully you've had a chance to read it over. But what I wanted to do is, rather than kind of going through the step-by-step with these, but I will answer any questions if you have them. But first, I'm gonna have Lynn come up. She's gonna kind of take this dry thing and talk a little, give you a better picture of what we're doing on treatment of wonder customers, so.
I have a few slides. Robert's gonna bring them up. Hopefully. He sent it to him.
It's good.
Oh, I think I sent you the wrong one. Use my USB, yep.
That's disconnect this for a sec.
Sorry, yeah, that was from our COVID up.
Thank you, Robert. Sorry about that. Okay, so as you can see, I think we do
Our DPL staff, our buildings, everything we do is, any decisions that we make, we try to do this with the library user in mind. It's always a library user first. So the holistic view that we try and look to provide the total customer service experience when anybody's in our buildings, when they're at programs, when they're in events, anything that we do, it's a holistic view, a commitment to service, everything we do for our customers. Next slide, please, Charlotte. So libraries mean different things to different people. So with our customer, when they come into our buildings, when they interact with staff, these are some of the expectations that we hope to provide and meet when they come into our buildings, events, and programs. So first off, it's that welcoming space. And when we look at welcoming spaces, we want our spaces to say, hey, glad you're here. We really are excited for you to be here. And we also strive to make sure that no matter who you are, that you recognize someone or something in the building, the program, or the service that you can relate to, that is you. They also invite inspiration. And again, inspiration can come in many different forms. Some people can be inspired by the way the light comes through one of the upstairs windows in the morning, or through the window in Lapine in the back. Our libraries are very interesting with how they are inspiring to other people. Some people, it's the smell or the feel of a library. How many times you hear somebody say, oh, I love the smell of the library when I come in. Like, well, that's interesting, but okay. It can be an inspiring thing. The safe environment. So customers should expect a safe environment. And this is, again, something where they should feel accepted without any fear or judgment. A safe environment for some might be, especially like the day-to-day in our next couple of days, it's a place to cool off for a little bit. It's a cooling shelter. It might be providing heat. It's a heating place for those during the day. It's also a place for private reflection. So, you know, somebody might have their favorite chair. You get really annoyed when somebody else is in their favorite chair because it's their chair, but they have that favorite chair. So they can, you know, browse for materials in their favorite spots. They might just like to hang out and stare out of a window. That's their private reflection time. Social interaction too is really important for our customers. People meet people here. I want to meet my tribe. Where are my friends? What's going on? And for other people, it might be their social interaction. It's the first person they talk to all day, that week. So it can be very powerful to have that social interaction with others. And then also community participation. This is where, you know, people come to participate in programs. They go to events, lectures, classes. There's a lot of different customer expectations here, different things for different people. So next slide, please. Robert, sorry. Peas, corn, and oats. So what happens when we have our customers with all these different expectations for what they want in a library? We sometimes do have problems. And the administrative rules that you see in your packet, the first one is our customer code of conduct. So with our customer code of conduct, it really is a way to outline the appropriate behavior when people are in their buildings, when there are programs and events. It also helps our staff actually recognize and address inappropriate behaviors as they happen or as they are reported. That's what our code of conduct can help with. It also, most importantly, provides customers with a way to appeal a process if for any reason they think that they have an issue with the reason they may have been talked to, excluded, or revoked from the library program, building, or event. Next slide. The flip side of that coin is customer service, what I call the customer service charter or the customer service administrative role. What customers can expect from us, very much like that first slide that we did, is a commitment to excellent service. Friendly face, staff that's courteous, efficient, attentive, we're here for you. They should be able to expect access to collections that are well kept. They're in order. They're not just thrown in a room and here, have fun. Some might like that, most of the time. Also the customer service charter, where we respect the rights of individuals. They should expect hours of service that meet their community needs. And then lastly, they should have access to all of our public areas. We try not to have any closed stacks. They should have access to our meeting rooms. And I put this picture of it in Sun River because I happened to run across this about something else. I thought, yeah, there's access to a public area. They should expect it to be shoveled. That comes in the winter time. So confidentiality. Confidentiality is another thing that customers should expect from our staff. So for our library application forms, for example, we only collect what's needed for someone to get a library account. We collect a few things for statistics and that's it. No driver's license, no social security. We don't need that. Just how we can get in contact with you if we need it and to show that you are a Deschutes County resident. We don't retain any usage data. Contrary to popular movies, the FBI does not have a secret link into our computer system. We do not hang on to those things forever and ever. I was like that in the movies when I was like, that's not true. We don't do that. I don't give it. All of our electronics, our public PCs, copy machines, anything where a customer logs in, if they forget to log out, it's timed out. Most of the time within 60 seconds. And everything is wiped every night. So we do not retain any of that information. And then.
So basically information on what people are reading is only what they have out already.
Correct.
Currently. So
Yes.
it comes back.
It's gone. Yep. And then again, confidentiality. If someone, because we can't always guarantee that there won't be visual or auditory privacy, but we do provide tutor rooms. Happy to go meet with people one-on-one, or if needed, a little bit more. There's book a librarian opportunities. These are great, and that has, and Sarah's back here, but I think that's actually been going up with book a librarians, where it's like, if you have a question that might take more than 5 minutes, or you just want to have a little one-on-one time privacy, book librarian sessions that have been great. And then also, we're doing a lot more with email. That's another thing I think a positive that came out of COVID and the pandemic is we can do some things a little bit better, even online through email. It does offer another layer of privacy. A new administrative role that wasn't included in your packet, but one that was created a few years back. We do have an anti-harassment administrative role. And this just states a little bit more clearly that the library does provide safe and harassment-free environment for our public, for our staff, and for our volunteers. And it happens not just in our buildings, but it will happen also, we have anti-harassment for our programs, events, online, if people are being harassing others online, or even on the phone. We do have an administrative role that goes a little bit beyond just the code of conduct for that. One of the reasons I think this one also came up is we do a lot of programs, as you know, off site. Think of author events or novel ideas. some of the other places like 10 Barrel when we do the drink and think series. You never know, you might have a heckler come in. What are you gonna do with that heckler? So again, this is one of these things where the anti-harassment does reach to all of our events, not just our buildings. Okay, and I think that's the end of it. So at this point, Holly and I are here to answer any questions. I did provide a link to the administrative rules here. One thing about this executive limitation, we have a lot of different administrative rules that we could go over and over and over, like service animals, but
Unattended child, children,
yeah.
abandoned property.
Abandoned property.
There's quite.
But these are the main ones. Any questions, comments?
I did have a question about, in the, customer code of conduct,
Mhm.
number 15. So it's on books, use of skateboards,
Mhm.
roller skates. So you're saying, so does that include, that doesn't include the sidewalks, right? Or does it?
Depends on our buildings, but most of the sidewalks are city owned.
Okay.
Yeah,
Like I'll find that's property for, we'll find the library, so
Mhm.
we do have jurisdiction.
yeah.
Yes, yeah. Or if they, decide they want to practice on our backloading building,
Right.
that's our property, so.
So after watching the Olympics, I'm thinking we should take that away. That could be the next Olympian.
I couldn't
I
have
know,
made
right?
the Olympics had I not been thwarted by the
Yes.
library.
That's right. Other questions or
Any
comments?
other questions? I appreciate this
Okay.
kind of overview. I think it made it a lot more lively than reading through the rules,
Yeah.
because it is a lot of detail.
Mhm.
But I think that commitment to being welcoming and meeting people where they are and accepting them and trying to ensure that everybody feels welcome who comes through the door is really important. And I know that can get controversial and difficult at times, and I've seen you personally, Lynn, engage with people who are engaged in behavior that some people might find objectionable or scary or whatever. And I just think the staff does a great job at treating people with respect and also holding a firm line on what's okay and what's not okay. And I mean, I'm proud of our libraries because they do that.
Yeah, especially in these days where things can become so uncivil so quickly.
Yeah, right.
They start out
They are, the staff is really truly, they are great. And every day I'm always amazed at some of the opportunities they have to talk to our
Yes.
customers, build relationships. And that's really the key thing too. A lot of times things can, as long as that relationship is built, sometimes you can,
Right, you
you don't have to worry about that
use-
code of conduct. Exactly.
Right, and I mean, I was just walking in, I mean, there were
Yes,
a bunch of people walking by and I'm thinking, boy, if it gets hot today, these people are gonna need a place to go, I mean, and it's like we want them to feel
Mhm.
like they have a place here,
Yes,
because it could save their lives. potentially.
for sure.
I bring up something, this is something for, I don't think we'll make a decision on this thing, something for us to consider with the increasing unhoused population and with our new constructions and remodelings that will occur. Number 22, the improper use of library restrooms. I know we had a discussion on this way back, it's not this board, but on what is the role of the library in terms of having hygienic facilities for the general public? And the thing I brought back was when we lived in Santa Barbara, there was a huge population, pretty close to the main library. And what they decided was, since a lot of the library staff was bicycling into work and jogging, and they would come in and they would actually have a shower facility for them. And they said, the board at that time said, well, we're having unhoused in the library. People are complaining about the odor. We have the shower facility already. Should we make it available for the people with rules and regulations on how you use it, and what the code of conduct would be for that? they decide yes, that it would be something that they want to do because people are going to be here anyway, why not address the problem that everybody else has with it?
Yeah, those conversations come up, I think they have
Yeah.
in the past, and it's something that comes up through, when you go to conferences and you read literature, those kind of conversations come up, and I think you have to look at each community and each building, its location, where it's at, what's happening around it. And, you know, look at those type of, considerations, if you will. So, yeah,
I'm thinking, you know,
it comes up from time to time.
instructions,
yeah,
Yeah,
Something we want to
if any
consider.
time to have that discussion, now is a good time as
Mhm.
the.
Yeah, as we're going through the remodel downtown and the building out north side. You know, what's going on. I don't know what's happening, well, the finance. A lot of homeless residents being born. So.
so yeah,
It's the
that's,
appropriate time to look at this, say, under what condition, what kind of control?
these are, yeah, it's definitely the community issue. It's not just a library issue. And I think that's how I kind of view it. And it's personally is that it's, you know, what does our community need, where partnerships are, what's already in existence and that kind of thing. So there's a lot of things
Right.
to consider when you look at those,
Right, so even
those
the,
options. Mhm.
the providing space and a regular schedule for the, community shower trucks that are operating.
Right.
And to say every Tuesday, they're gonna be here from 9.
Exactly, right.
Well-
There's a lot of different options to look at and
Right.
view when you're.
Other things we should discuss, I think. Not here, not now.
There's some opportunities though.
So does anybody have further questions, comments? If not, I'd entertain a motion on treatment of library customers. Blank?
Yes.
Okay. Okay. All those in favor?
Aye.
Motion passes unanimously. Okay. Thank you. Updates, Todd.
Okay, I put in front of you our current hours. So we are still operating on reduced hours because of COVID. And we are gearing up to get back to our full hours. Right now, we're at our pre-COVID hours in our East Bend, Sisters, Sun River, and the Pine Branches. So those will remain the same. Just kind of as a reminder, pre-COVID, at this building, we were open 9 a.m. to 9 p.m. Monday through Thursday. And so looking at reinstituting hours, first of all, kind of going back to what we were talking about earlier, we talked with staff about their experiences with the 9 to 9 hours. I've got a lot of great feedback that really from 8 to 9 o'clock, this was pretty much a dead zone. We barely got any customers. So what we have decided to do is shift those 8 to 9 hours to Sundays. So on Sundays, we'll open early, 9 a.m. to 6 p.m. So the new hours for downtown Bend are going to be 9 a.m. to 8 p.m. Monday through Thursday, and 9 to 6 Friday, Saturday, and Sunday. Also easy to remember. And then in Redmond, we will be going back to the, these are old hours.
I was gonna say, you might have given them an old.
I think I gave you an old one. So, well, now you can see what we used to be. In Redmond, we'll be going back to the 9 to 7.
Not Monday through Thursday.
Yeah, Monday through Thursday and Friday and Saturday, 9 to 6. So we'll basically be reinstituting those hours. That will be starting October 2nd, or we're aiming for October 2nd right now. We do have a number of positions to fill so that we can actually expand those hours, which we're right in the middle of doing. Holly's been interviewing people a lot in the last few weeks, so especially this week. So
You're not finding a shortage of applicants, like
We
other
have not,
businesses?
we have not had a shortage. Very fortunate.
So yeah, you will see some come out here. It's not that we lost a whole bunch of people, it's just that they are in positions. And then with COVID, whenever anybody left for whatever reason, through attrition, we didn't rehire. So we are doing some of that as well.
yeah, it's a good question though about filling the positions. We're finding for those public service positions that we're getting a lot of applications. When you get to some more specialty positions,
Oh, yeah.
it's going, those are more of a challenge.
IT.
Well, we haven't had any IT openings, but we've had some, like a payroll position, which we were able to fill. But we had to go out a couple of times to get somebody. Yeah, it's because there's a lot of competition out there. There's 10 million jobs open in the United States right now. And people are looking, so. The good news is that I think that's a good sign for us that we are able to recruit. Other piece is letting you know that the governor announced, or the state announced, that they're going to make Juneteenth a holiday. Actually, they did make Juneteenth a holiday starting this year, announcing it 2 days before the holiday, which didn't allow me a lot of time to react or staff. For me, as I think when we look at our equity, diversity, and inclusion initiatives, that I think this is a holiday that the library should be honoring and celebrating. And that's one that I don't need decisions now, but I would like the board to start thinking about that. Do we add an additional holiday for staff? Juneteenth is, are you all familiar with Juneteenth?
I thought we do all federal holidays.
No, we don't. No. Usually our holidays are actually negotiated with our union. We will be negotiating with our union for a new 3 to 4 year contract, starting next fiscal year. But the next Juneteenth is actually in this fiscal year. So that's a piece that I'd like to put on an agenda for a future meeting to discuss, adding that for us for this year. So I just kind of want to lay the groundwork, think about that, see if you have any questions on it before we put that on the agenda. Let's see. Our next board meeting will be in the admin building. So we'll move from this building because starting in September, we're opening up our public meeting spaces. So this will be harder and harder to book.
Maybe.
And right now we've been over here because we filled that room with summer with the library materials. So we'll be done with that in September. Last thing for the board to be aware of is we've been looking at our children's programs like story times. We were kind of excited to get that going again, but looking at how COVID is going, we've decided to delay that at least until next year, next January, and possibly in the spring, especially knowing that kids right now are not able to get vaccinated. So we'll still be focusing on our online services for children. Which is, sorry to say that, but it's the right thing to do.
That's a good decision.
Well, and I think people have really, I've heard so many comments that people have been loving the stuff that's online and really using it a ton. So I think that's one of those silver lining types of situations where that's accessible whenever parents need it.
Yes, and we'll be able to try out our new studio, which we got through the grant, the IMLS grant. So that'll help a lot in making those videos for the program. Those are my updates.
Okay. So foundation update, we met last night, so it's fresh. Foundation board met with Chris Van Dyke for the visioning process, and so that was really an inspirational, positive session. It was wonderful, and I think Chris got a lot out of it. And so work is proceeding, planning for author is proceeding with some potential changes there, but we're still in the discussion phase. And reading is continuing for novel ideas, so we just whacked 10 books off the list yesterday. So we're getting down to the finalists, so because we're doing it virtually, no blood has been shed yet, but it's a pretty amazing process to read through all of those. So, yeah, so that's what's going on with the foundation. We don't have collective bend update because they did not meet. And we're at self-review of the meeting. So Ann, do you want to start?
Oh, yes, I think we had a really good meeting. I just want to say as a new board member, I really appreciate going through the monitoring process. That really kind of educates me on everything. And I really appreciate the presentations by staff, just to know kind of the nuts and bolts of what's going on with the library. So, yeah, as a new board member, I really appreciate that aspect of the meetings.
Yeah, and I think we're in the process of scheduling all the orientations, and hopefully that will help as well. And you know, the one thing that I forgot to say this time is if as we're going along, you have questions in the middle of a meeting, like, feel free to just speak up and say, what do you mean by that acronym? Or what do you know, like, what are you talking about? You know, because I know it's a lot of new stuff. And so just feel free to ask questions before, during, or after.
Thank you.
Especially libraries, we're really good at jargon.
Yeah.
Like all professions, so.
Oh, yeah.
Cynthia?
Yeah, it was a good meeting. I appreciated Greg's report and Lynn's report. And one of the things that's really cool about what you were reporting on is exactly as you said, it allows staff to have guidance, to know how to deal with situations. And I think it's really a well done. So anyway, it's a good meeting.
Good. Great, thank you very much. Good presentation again, and then also. I think we're doing well, coming sort of back into the pandemic. And we handle it, as long as keeping morale and staff informed and they feel comfortable. I've always felt that. I remember me at my very first day on like talking to people. The ladies were online and the woman said, I wanted to work at the National Library of Congress. We got into the discussion of why do you want to be a librarian, and almost every one of them, that it was their second career. Because when they started out in their careers, they decided this was not a friendly thing to do. They wanted to be with people. Librarians are the self-sorted population. They like people. They like to be with each other. And that's why we did so well. People love the library. I think it's great. It shows coming through this pandemic so far. Really reaffirmed my belief that librarians are very special. Lucky for us, because then they don't quit from somewhere else. IT out there. Good meeting. Very nice.
All right. Yeah, I agree. I think it was a good meeting. I think we had some productive discussions, and I think that was really good. Being able to be together, to work together and talk things out, I think is really a constructive process. And yeah, so and I appreciated the presentations a lot. It's really good to be kept abreast of what's going on month by month, because the size of the projects is huge, and we have a big fiscal responsibility. So we need to be informed, and I really appreciate your reports a lot, Greg, and just your level of detail and being able to answer any questions we have to throw at it. So that's great. And Todd?
Oh, great, thank you. One, you may have noticed, I made it a light agenda. I figured we've had some long meetings, and we've got a lot of orientation things coming up, so try to spread it out a little bit. And we have a big one coming up next month is our annual results monitoring report. So that's a big one. And I appreciate the discussion around the minutes. I think that's really gonna help Lori and I as we kind of sort through how we're doing this, and kind of looking forward to some of our innovation with the online.
Yeah, I think that the whole recording, posting the recordings is just a great idea.
Yeah, we're supporting that.
Yeah.
Great.
All right. Okay, well, with that, I think we're done. So I'll adjourn
Thank you all.
the meeting.